Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for CloudOne's webinar with IBM, What's New in CLM 6.0.2. I'm Andrea Massimilian, your moderator for today. And before we get today, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Jeff Babylon, part of the Global Response Team for IBM IoT Watson. With that, I'll pass it on to Jeff.
Thanks, Andrea. And welcome, everybody, and hopefully your Friday is going well. So as Andrea said, we're going to talk a little bit today about some of the changes in 6.02 that are coming down the pike for everyone. Specifically, we want to talk a little bit about the Safe 4.0 beta templates, where you can find them, how to get them installed, and some of the considerations that you need to take into account when you're upgrading your releases and or migrating from 3.0 to 4.0. Okay? We also want to talk a little bit about global configuration. Kind of the changes that we've introduced in 6.02 and what the impacts are to configuration leads, especially since most of the enhancements are targeted towards their role. And we're going to talk a little bit about the JAS reporting service. We won't go too in-depth with the JAS reporting service, but we are going to talk about a couple of the items, and then there'll be another follow-on webinar in July that's going to go on a little bit deeper dive for JRS 6.02. Also, as Andrea stated when she first opened the call, there's a Q&A box. We're hoping to try and get the format of this more interactive as we go forward so that folks can actually just ask their questions. But please don't hesitate to ask questions, and I'm happy to try and answer whatever questions come down the line in terms of the changes in 6.02 or CLM in general. And if I don't have that information, I'll be happy to go track it down for you. Okay? So that said, let me get out of the slides here and actually jump over to CLM. Okay, let me go in here. And let's start by talking a little bit about the SAFE site or the SAFE landing page for SAFE support. There's a page out here on jazz.net, it's jazz.net/safe, where you can find all the information that you could possibly ever want to find in terms of how we're supporting SAFE 3.0 and 4.0. The reason I want to start here is because there's a set of links that all the way at the bottom of this page that are going to get you where you need to go when we're talking about getting the templates, the 4.0 beta templates, and understanding some of the migration or reporting paths, et cetera, that are available with that SAFE template that have been provided. Okay, there's a colleague of mine, Amy Silberbauer. She's put a lot of hours into producing most of this documentation. And you'll find that there's an email address that she monitors, and she can get back to you immediately with questions and stuff you have around SAFE. So don't hesitate to reach out if you get stuck while you're trying to do your SAFE planning and implementation within CLM. So I'm at the bottom of this page right now, and basically I'm pointing out that we're going to go over here to the SAFE 4.0 assets, and that's where we can find our templates for 4.0 or the beta templates, which I have on... that's the reporting. Oh, let me just click it and go that way. Okay. So you're going to come to this particular page. It's hung off of DeveloperWorks, and basically this is going to take you to where you can download the templates. You'll see about halfway down the page the SAFE 4.0 beta templates, and of course the disclaimer that since they're beta, these are provided as is with no implied support. But there's a lot of documentation to help you along the path as you're getting these templates installed or you're trying to configure and customize your own templates. Okay? So you'll want to come out here and grab the two that are associated with RTC. There's one SAFE 4.0 template out here for QM, and then there's a project level template that's out here for Doors Next Gen. And I want to point out the fact that this is not a zip, this is a .archive, so the process for getting a project template in is a little bit different than a process template, since Doors Next Gen doesn't necessarily support the same process for process templates in terms of how we're going to import this information. So we'll go over to, I've already downloaded these, we'll go over to CLM and I'll show you how you bring these in and how you can avoid some of the errors as you go through those steps. Okay, so let me just jump over here to my server, and we'll start with CCM. So let me log back into my instance here. And I'll just go over here to all projects for CCM. And it wants me to log in again. the drawback of not having single sign-on my test environment. So I can either go to manage all projects, or I can go to a specific project and basically go to the manage this project area. I'm going to go to manage all projects because there's a templates link that's there. But again, if I was within a specific project area, I could just go to manage this project area, and templates is available there as well. So I'm going to click on the templates option that's right here on the blue menu bar. And this lists all the process templates that are available to me for RTC. You'll notice that SAFe 3.0 process, portfolio, and program, those are shipping out of the box now at this point. So they're already there and available to use. But bringing in the 4.0, I want to make sure I go through the process of import template and then browse to the two specific zip files that we have for RTC. So I'm going to bring in the program and the portfolio. Go through that real quick. It's a fairly straightforward and a quick process in terms of bringing these two templates in. And let me grab the program. All right, so now I have the SAFe 4.0 process templates for both program and portfolio in my CCM instance. And now I'm just going to go to Quality Manager. And manage all projects again. This gets me to the templates link pretty quick. We'll go in here. And something to be aware of is that you must be on a 6.02 version if you import the RQM process template for SAFe 4.0. It's only supported in 6.02 and beyond. All of the others are supported 6.01 and beyond. So there's versions that you need to keep in mind in terms of this particular process. Okay? We'll go ahead and grab the QM, or the quality process template. And I'll bring that template in. And it shows right here my SAFe 4.0 for portfolio. And now I can go take care of RM. Now with RM being a project level template, we need to go about that in just a slightly different way. So let me get to requirements management. And I'm just going to pick a project area, because basically the way you get to project template imports is, or uploads I should say, is by going to the Manage Project Properties page. And to do that, I need to be within the context of a project. So over here on this little gear icon, if I'm in a RM project, I can get to Manage Project Properties. And under Manage Project Properties, you'll see that there's a templates location here. And this is where I can bring in my project level archives or templates. Okay? So we'll go ahead and we'll upload. And this time we'll pick that .archive file. And we'll upload that. Okay? And so now I've gotten all of the products covered for the SAFe 4.0 project templates, right? Project portfolio, program level templates. So at this point I want to pause for just a second and talk a little bit about, for those of you out there on the phone who already are running, say RTC 3.0, or you've created your own custom 3.0 SAFe project templates. Something to keep in mind is that these templates are specific to a project. So when you're upgrading your versions, there's not an implied upgrade of templates as you do that upgrade, okay? So a lot of this is customization, so you're going to have to manually care for upgrading or migrating the path through from 3 to 4 in projects that are already being managed as a 3.0 SAFe project. And so the reason I bring that up is because a lot of times people will assume that, you know, if I upgrade then everything's just cared for and my 3.0 will just automatically be upgraded. There's not really a fast path or a button click in order to get that done. What I've brought up is a PDF that you can get to, again, from that Jazz.net SAFe landing page. You can get to this PDF, and basically this walks you through migrating from a project that's a 3.0 SAFe framework into the 4.0 level framework, and all of the customization steps that you need to go through in terms of that. because it involves, let me jump back over here to CLM. It involves like being in your project area. So let me just jump over here real quick. Let's go to JKE.
Jeff, we have a quick question.
Go ahead. What's the question?
Is there a complete list of other lifecycle templates available besides the one mentioned in this webinar? In particular, is there one for systems requirements document?
So in terms of it being a lifecycle template, you can create a lifecycle project area and then basically apply the process templates for SAFe and create your own lifecycle project template. So it's kind of a misnomer to say that what we're doing is creating a lifecycle process template. We're importing individual process project level templates to each of the products. But if I want to create a lifecycle one, there's not one that is provided out of the box or that's been made available as a beta. So you would need to basically create your own lifecycle project administration project area, right, with the projects that you want in it and with those templates applied. And then you can templatize that or use it as a master per se and create children underneath that. And one of the topics that's discussed in the PDF is kind of the strategies around going forward in your life cycles in terms of making your maintenance easier or how you want to approach that. By creating children project areas off of a master type project area, you're better positioned to be able to process your updates to your templates and have it filtered down if those children project areas are inheriting from the master versus having to go to each project area and apply updates to these processes. All right? So that's actually a very good question and one that needs careful consideration as you go forward and you're planning out your project areas and your process templates to ensure that your maintenance is not going to be overwhelming from a manual perspective and try to follow more of the master child where those children project areas can inherit what you're doing to that master.
Okay, and there's one more.
Okay.
Where's the archive for the available templates?
So on the Jazz Safe, sorry, let me go back. I got here from the jazz.net/safe landing page, and at the bottom of that, which is here, at the bottom of the jazz.net safe page, you'll see Safe 4.0 assets. If you just click that, it basically takes you to a Developer Works wiki page where those beta archives and zip files are for the process project level templates. So as soon as this loads here, being slow, we'll get back to where I was. Did I click it? Let's see if it'll take me to my cached info. No, it wants to be slow. Now let me see if I can get back there from this page. Okay, so this is one of the pages, and this is actually talking about some of the domain models. Oh, actually, that is the template. So good. Okay, so that link that was very slow to come up, and I'm hoping that my refresh isn't impacted by the fact that the internet is running slow there. But that link, Safe 4.0 Assets, takes you here, and in the middle of this page, you'll find all of those 4.0 betas, including the project level template or beta archive for DNG. Is this visible, Andrea?
Yes.
Okay, so that's how you get to these, and then you just download these. If you click on them, it'll download, and then you have them in your downloads folder. And then when we were going through, let me get back over here. When we were going through the process on manage projects, so like I'm in a project here, so I'm just going to go manage this project area. Or manage all projects, or manage all project areas, you'll have this templates menu item that's in the blue menu bar. And from there, you can manage your templates that are process templates for RTC, process templates for Quality Manager, or you get to the project templates from the managed project properties of any project within DNG. So that's a little bit different. It's a different process for DNG. Okay? Did that answer the question? We good?
Yes, it seems like it. He said,
Okay.
Someone said those are all safe. So what about other than safe?
The templates other than safe? So we ship out of the box several templates. If there's custom templates or one-off specific templates that have been created to support methodologies other than what we ship out of the box, then they're going to be on their respective pages. I don't off the top of my head know of a location where we're currently supporting additional methodology templates, but that's not to say that they don't exist, right? I just was focused more on the safe templates that are quite popular at the moment. But I can check into that, Andrea, so I'll take an action. And if we have other lifecycle or project process templates available for systems engineering per se, I would imagine we have one for systems engineering somewhere. I will get that information and provide it back to you so that it's made available with the recording for this.
Sounds great.
Okay. So let me go back to the JKE banking for change management. And basically what I was talking about was some of the migration path pieces and parts. The reason there's an exhaustive PDF, this is where we were and that's what I was making reference to. This PDF will walk you through many concepts and pieces and parts in order to make sure that as you either customize your own, say, 4.0 template or you migrate from 3.0 to 4.0, that you're accounting for all of the artifacts and process level pieces for your 4.0 implementation of SAFe. Okay? And the reason I jumped over here was that you're going to be doing a lot of work within the Manage This Project area of your projects that are going to be migrated. But you have to come in here and physically or manually do these changes in order to do your migration. There's no auto magic button that will take you from 3.0 to 4.0 with a project area you've already established. Okay? And that's a big point to remember as you move forward in your versions and releases, that if you have plans to take a 3.0 to a 4.0 to whatever the next version of SAFe is, there's a manual process currently for doing that. Okay? And there's no expectation that an upgrade is going to do it for you automatically. Okay. So that said, let me also make reference to, and I wonder if that's still sitting where it was. So the other thing I wanted to point out is that we have a link here called Safe Reporting. And I want to talk a little bit about the reports that have been provided, again, in an as-is capacity for SAFe. I say as-is just simply because they're not shipped out of the box with JRS, but they are being made available in terms of this SAFe support pages that we have out here on IBM. And they're being made available, and the comments or issues that you have with them, they can be directed right back to the person who's leading the charge on developing some of these assets, and that's Amy Silberbauer. Okay? And you can get to her by this email right here. If you send your issues or your comments relative to the reports or the beta templates, if you're having trouble or whatever, you can raise those issues or those comments or ask for guidance and advice by using this particular email right here. Okay? And you can also come out here and post comments, like Fred posted a comment about 6.02 version of the reports, and Amy's monitoring this as well, and she'll post back. Okay? All right, so something to be said here about the reports, because I want to talk a little bit about how you can report on your SAFe templates once you've got them in, you're using them in projects. You obviously want to create reports. So again, Amy did create a set of 3.0 reports. These will work in 6.01, 6.02, going forward, as long as you've got the templates in place and you've followed the directions that she's provided in her PDF, these reports will work just fine. So you can come out here and you can download the guidelines and then these zip files depending upon what version you are. I would imagine that most of the clients that are on this call are at a 6.01 level. I'm just going to make that assumption. I have these 6.01 reports, so I'm going to kind of jump over here to JRS real quick, and I'm going to actually bring these reports in. So I'm going to navigate to the admin, and the way you're going to bring these reports in is you're going to go to the import additional reports. So once you've downloaded them, you can come into the admin here and basically browse for that zip file that you grabbed, which is the 6.01 reports, if that's your version. You have to make sure because these are very version specific. Okay, 601 is not going to work in 602, and 60 is not going to, well, there should be backwards compatibility, but you get the idea. So let me go ahead and say OK. And once this process completes, I want to point out a very important part of this process for importing these reports, just simply because it's not intuitive unless you took the time to read through the PDF, that why you would be seeing certain conditions or during or after this import process. So we'll let this finish here. It'll only take another minute. And then we can talk a little bit about what you should expect to see. Okay, so it's given me my status about the import. It said it imported 15 and it skipped 4. So if I click on that link, it's telling me that there were errors, and that's why 4 of these were skipped. But these are called out in the documentation in the reporting guidelines. And basically, if you see those errors, it means you did not follow the steps that are prerequisite to bringing those reports in. Okay? And in order to do that, you need to basically create some data. Let me get to the right place here. So the instructions have you create some data and do a couple of processes in terms of that data, and then actually run a data collection and refresh your schema for JRS. So while the errors are expected and normal if you didn't follow these, I just want to point that out because people can spend a lot of wasted time if they're trying to figure out, well, why did I get an error? It should just come in. This would be why. You need to follow these steps that are provided, and those are actually provided right on the same page where you can get the reports. It's the very first link. Okay? So make sure you grab that particular PDF and follow those steps before you're bringing in these reports so that you don't have to wonder why did I get an error, etc. Okay? Now, I'm not talking in depth about what SAFE is. That would be another webinar completely. I'm kind of making the assumption that either those of you that are on the call already have a SAFE 3.0 implementation that you're working with, or you're in the beginning phases of trying to plan for and implement SAFE to begin with. Okay? If you're trying to do that as a planning exercise, you don't have SAFE basically implemented yet in your environment, there's a lot of information that's out here in terms of planning. Again, you can go to many of the links that are down here at the bottom, or there's main links that get you to where you need to do planning, etc. So let me scroll up here. And basically there's links that will take you off to PDFs again and or other information that's out here on the wiki, like domain models as you're doing your planning, to make sure if the out-of-the-box isn't going to meet your needs, maybe you need to customize the out-of-the-box, or maybe you need to start with your own SAFE 4.0 template altogether. There's information out here that will lead you right through that step by step. Let's see. So in this particular PDF, the one ALM SAFE 4.0 domain models, it basically shows you everything that was contributed to these betas in terms of your objects that are created within each, how they relate to each other in terms of traceability, the specifications, the implementation of that traceability across, and how to use them, okay? But there's steps in here as well as the attributes, right? Because there's a lot of attributes. So there's steps that you can provide, step-by-step documentation that will help you either customize your own, customize the out-of-the-box, or basically go with the out-of-the-box so that you can just get up and running. If you go with the out-of-the-box, you're up and running fairly quickly. It didn't take us but about, let me get to the right page. It didn't take us but about 10 minutes to install those templates, and then I can go off and start creating projects using those templates. Again, you'll want to keep in mind of the master-child relationship so that you have a place where you can make updates and have it propagate down to your children projects. Okay? If there's no other questions on the SAFE 4.0, I may change gears a little bit here and talk about some of the changes for configuration management, and then we'll go into JRS after that. So anything in the Q&A box there, Andrea, before I move forward?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about configuration management. And I don't know how many folks on the call are actually using configuration management, global configuration. So I'm going to talk from a perspective of where you can find the information. Let me get to the right page here. Where you can find the best information as you're going between releases. New and noteworthy for this. Okay. All right. So whenever you go to jazz.net and you're getting products, etc., there's always a release notes and a new and noteworthy. The new and noteworthy is the best, quickest glance for finding out what's going on in terms of a new release. What are the enhancements? What issues potentially were solved by adding an additional feature or correcting something? This gives you at a quick glance some of the overview of what's coming down the pike in terms of that release. So I can't stress enough leveraging this new and noteworthy tab. For global configuration management, most of the enhancements that we have out here were targeted towards configuration leads and helping them better manage the global configurations and the global components that they have under those configurations. Okay? So in terms of that, let me jump over to this one, which is a different environment. This is actually a 601 environment, and I apologize for it not being a 602 environment, but I had actually took GC and LQE off of my test environment and hadn't had a chance to get it back on there. So we can talk about it in the context of 601, and I'll kind of point out the changes that are going to be relevant for you in 602. So let me jump over here to global configuration. Let's see, global configuration, and we'll just go all projects for the moment. Okay, so the global configuration homepage, this is where you're going to manage all of your global configurations. And again, I'm assuming everybody knows how to get to a point where they have a global configuration. If not, perhaps we can do a webinar around creating configurations in the first place. So with global configuration, some of the changes in 6.0, again, as I was pointing out, they come for configuration leads. So when configuration leads, when they're working with their global configurations, have commented back or communicated back with IBM that they're having challenges in doing specific searches, in being able to do some very, in some cases, fundamental administrative tasks and or items that were never thought of in terms of, oh, well, sure, you'd want to do that. That makes sense. So those are the kind of enhancements that were targeted in 602. One of them was the fact that there wasn't a quick way or a really good way to even look at history for configurations. So part of the changes that are coming down the pike in 6.0 is that this page is going to look different. When you're looking at a global configuration, you're going to have basically a show history, and you'll have the ability to look at the history for a global configuration or a global component itself. And that was huge in the fact that it gives the configuration leads the ability to understand when somebody changes a component or configuration, what change was made and when. So if they need to go back and fix that, it's easy to navigate and go make the change. Okay. The other changes that came down the pike in terms of the global configuration was in how people were searching. So if I go into the global configuration component piece I have right here, the ability to search for pieces and parts was basically broken down into terms of searching for artifacts by name or by tag. And what they've done is they've actually combined that search to give a little bit more flexibility so that you can actually do name and tag in the same box. So it gives those configuration leads the ability to now put in tags and further filter the search set as they're working with the components and configurations themselves, which is a very big deal for those configuration leads to be able to whittle down the configuration information that they may have. Because in some cases there's many, many components that contribute to a configuration where you need to start paring that information down to make it more manageable. So giving that capability to the leads was a priority in 602, and so you'll be able to come in here, and when you're adding things, if you're working with, say you want to add a configuration, this particular, and you pick a this particular search, it no longer says with tags. Basically, you have a single box that allows you to do name and tags based upon whatever you're searching on. You can just start putting your tags, and that'll start limiting this list. Okay? The other nice thing about that particular search capability is that when you're viewing your history, you have the ability to use the tags as well in that filter so that you can filter the history that you're actually viewing to narrow down the amount of history you're seeing. So that gives those leads the ability to work with the history much quicker and easier as well. Okay? The other big change that's coming down the pike in terms of 602 for global configuration is the ability to archive a configuration. So that wasn't previously available, but now you can actually archive, and it's not necessarily delete, but it's archiving such that you can bring it back, so that you can start, taking care of stuff that is old and not used anymore. You can start archiving some of these configurations. All right? Any specific questions around those particular enhancements that we have in global configuration? Okay. So let's change gears a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit about the JAS reporting service and some of the overviews in terms of the 602 changes. Now, we
have one more question.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Someone said, we are beginning to explore the features and functionality around global configuration and how applicable to our environment it is. Are there additional resources outside of the Knowledge Center? You mentioned an additional webinar specifically on the global configuration from an implementation perspective.
Yeah, I suggested perhaps that, if there's a large enough need, then perhaps we should do a webinar around, basically getting up and running with global configuration, because it can become overwhelming to try and think about the streams and the components that contribute to a global configuration and knowing how to use it. And if that's the case, then we probably want to try and set up a webinar, and maybe Daryl, if you're still there, we should probably try to reach out to Amy Silverbauer and bring her in to help out with that webinar.
Yep. Yeah, and if I could ask, if you're on the call and you're interested in that specific component, just send me an email or just reach out to me, and we can get that, see about getting that scheduled.
And again, on that particular page, right, contacting Amy is as easy as basically coming down here to the bottom of that SAFE page, the jazz.net/SAFE, contact IBM about SAFE, and she gets visibility into the stuff that comes in on that. And I know Amy well enough to know that she would never not want an opportunity to talk to somebody about it. So there's numerous resources available, and if it's got enough traction behind a desire to see, then I'll work with Daryl and we'll see what we can do about getting one set up that's just specifically about how do you get up and running with it. Okay? Okay. All right. So, and the other thing I wanted to point out, there's a number of actual, so on our rational channel for education, or IBM software education, I should say, there's like this one, which is basically what's new in 602 for collaborative lifecycle management. But there's a number of these out here, and you can work with whichever topic it is, whether it's configuration management, whether it's SAFE, etc. And there's also videos available as well. When you're looking at some of this documentation, there's links off that will get you to, like this one will take you to a place where you can actually watch a video where Amy partnered with this Richard Canaster from the SAFE initiative to basically deliver education about what was changed in order to support 4.0, or what changes came down the pike in terms of 3 and 4 and how it's being supported. So there's a number of resources out here that I encourage everyone to take advantage of in terms of whether it's SAFE, configuration management, reporting, what have you. Okay? All right, so let's go back a little bit to here. Did that address the QA questions we have currently, Andrea? I'm going to assume so. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the JAS reporting service. Okay? Jazz Reporting Service, I would imagine most everybody on this call is using. If you're on any version of 6, then you're more than likely using the Jazz Reporting Service. It's gone through a number of gyrations of enhancements since it was first introduced back in 5.0 timeframe. One of the enhancements that I want to talk about as we're looking at this today is support for timesheets, because that's a big time report that people have been wanting, and there really wasn't a lot of support for it out of the box. But 6.02 is addressing some of the timesheet needs in terms of reports. And so let's talk a little bit. Let me get over here to JRS. Where was I? Oh, I was here. All right, let me get back to Report Builder. Okay, so right off the bat, when you first come into Report Builder, you're going to notice a couple of changes UI-wise. I would imagine you should expect changes to this UI for at least a few more releases, just simply because they're refining and adding to it in terms of user feedback and in terms of ease of use. So one of the biggest things that you'll notice right off the bat is we have this Learn item that's underneath our menu here on the left-hand side. And Learn is basically kind of a hub where you can go to try and get additional help or find resources for help on how to create projects, how to create reports, how to work with the data that you've got in terms of what you're building reports on, how to do different things with your formatting, conditional parameters, and what have you. Okay, so it's a really good resource that they've added in terms of reporting and its capabilities with the Jazz Reporting Service. So I recommend taking advantage of this, just simply because I know that reporting can be very overwhelming. That's kind of the primary area that I typically support. Okay, so going back to this menu, one of the things that's coming down the pike, or is there for 6.02, is with your, well, let me start with admin first. Sorry for that. So when you have your data sources, you can have any data source defined outside your data warehouse. As long as it's a reportable REST data source, you can basically attach to it and use it. Okay. Typically, for clients, you'll be working with a single data warehouse data source. But in many cases, if you're using LQE, you'll also have your LQE data source. Okay. So when you're actually working with importing of reports, you'll get the option now, instead of seeing just browse, pick a zip file, and say OK, you'll have an option here on this particular dialog to actually pick the data source that you're working or targeting. Because if you developed reports using, say, LQE, you can't be importing those reports against the data warehouse and vice versa. So you'll have an option here to basically import your reports and pick a data source at the same time, so you're not continually bouncing between your data sources. Okay? So let me go back to our Report Builder interface. And I did mention, so I'm going to go into here to Build, where I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the enhancements. Build is targeting basically building your own report from scratch, for those of you who may have not seen this interface previously. But one of the biggest pieces of functionality, I think, or is been asked for time and time again, is the timesheets. And I want to talk a little bit about that as we talk about this report here. So let me just go ahead and get to my projects. Did I not pick? Data sources, the data warehouse. Where's my? That's the thing about live. Things work 5 minutes before you try them. And I think I have an internet thing going on here. Just refresh this page. Okay. There we go. So let's just pick JKE.
We have a question.
Okay.
They say in that new reporting services version, is it possible to create reports to show average days that some stories say, like for example, planned by or sprint number 1, like they already have for state?
So is there an example out of the box report that we're talking about modifying? or are we just talking about targeting the planned date on a work item for a project? And if that wasn't clear to the person asking the question, help lead me down the path of what it is you're trying to accomplish. And while you're doing that, I will just go ahead and select work item and hit continue here real quick, and then I'm going to pause right here.
They said the average days that the story stays on planned for attribute.
So the average days or number of days open?
I think so.
Because there's various states, right? I mean, you could even have your own custom states against that story. So I'm assuming that it's in a state of open for that particular story, and you're wanting to report on the average number of days it's within that particular state. So that would be a yes or a no if you could provide. Okay. So in terms of looking at the average number of days open, I don't know the answer to that off of the top of my head. I would imagine that given the capabilities of reporting against state that we have, especially within 602, that's a possibility, but I will have to take that as a follow-up. And Amy, I will look to you to help me get that information back to the person who's asking the question. So I will sync up with you post-call to try and get that answer directly emailed back to that person.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay. All right. So I paused here on the optional traceability links. So I picked basically I picked the JKE banking project, and I picked work items, and I'm going to add a relationship. And if I scroll down here in the relationships, time entry is now an option for me in terms of reporting against that time information. So now I can start looking at time entries. And the thing that's nice about this too is you have the ability to further refine, like I want to look at the time entries from a particular month or what have you, okay? So I got my time entry. Let me just, whoops. Save this. The other thing, and I'll make mention of it because I just saved this report, as you're doing an edit, if you want to duplicate something, you can quickly duplicate it provided the report is in a saved state initially so that it's actually a real object in the database. Once it's in a saved state, if you're in the process of editing a report, this duplicate button is now available so you can just quickly duplicate something. Let me go back here. And I want to actually, my conditions. So in the conditions, for this time entry, I can pick a specific date, a day of the week, month, owner, quarter, time code, or time spent. So they're giving quite a few options, at least for this go-round for 602, in order to start looking at that timesheet entry and data. And it's big because a lot of people have been wanting to report on this, and we didn't necessarily have anything out of the box, at least for the data warehouse data source, this is a very good thing. So let me just go ahead and, I don't even know if I have time data in the JKA banking. Yeah, I don't. But the ability to report on that timesheet data is a large gain for the clients out there. So let me go back now to a out-of-the-box report and talk a little bit about one of the other enhancements in 602. So let's see, how about, let's go to this one. That should be, oh, actually I have a duplicated one. My reports. And let me go into this. Edit. Okay, so on the graph options that you have when you want to display a graph, one of the enhancements that's come into play in terms of 602 is the ability to actually label your graph now in terms of the axis, which is very nice because if you're going to create a graph, you want to be able to at least have your own custom labels for the X and Y axis. Okay, so that's what this capability in 602 is giving you, is the ability to come in here and label those axes on your graphs for the reports that you're creating and or embedding. The other thing that's nice about this particular set of enhancements in 602 is you also now have in your conditions, when you're setting conditions for your report, if you're working with a condition that's like a user, right? Let me add a condition, and let me just choose creator. If you're working with a user, you have the option to specify this radio button here that's called current user. And what's nice about that particular option is if you're creating an embedded report that you want to use on a dashboard, which in many cases a lot of people are trying to do, a lot of these micro reports so that team dashboards, et cetera, have targeted specific information. If you use this current user radio button with any kind of user field in your report, it basically directs the scope of the report to be the logged in user who's viewing it. So if I create a report and I have current user specified as a parameter of that report on the dashboard, when I log into that dashboard, it's going to default to me as being the user for that report, so it will be specific information to me. And whoever else logs in, it will be specific to them, which is nice because you can start tailoring your widgets on your dashboards to be more user specific rather than more generalized to project level data only, right? So that's a really good enhancement that's coming in 602. Again, we're going to look pretty deep in terms of the JRS when we do our JRS next month in terms of report creation. And Andrea, if you could take a note, perhaps we should look at doing the average number of days open for a story as a report in that particular webinar next month and target that as one of the reports that we step through building.
Of course. We also have a question.
Sure.
Is the list of selected users limited to only those that you can see based on project membership, or does it list all the users in Jazz?
In terms of the option that we just discussed?
Yes, I think so.
Let me first get back here and bring up this option list. Okay, so selected users, I can pick. It's basically the same. If this is the feature you're talking about, and I'll pause here for a minute so we can get your response. But if this is the item that you're talking about, this is limited to whatever is registered users. So if I do a search on Jeff, I should find myself. There's me. I could probably find Daryl. Oh, maybe not. Are you not in there, Daryl? Let's see.
I thought I was.
I thought you were too. Search on DAR. Interesting. Let's see. I know that Patrick is there. Oh, so then this, and that would be new to me. I was under the impression that the scope would have been your registered users. Oh, so hang on a second. I forgot. I'm in my actual test environment. So Daryl, you don't exist there. Let me put. I know is in my test environment first. Yeah. So all of the people that are in my registered JTS are able to be searched on and selected as specific users for this particular attribute. So did that answer the question, or did I go down a path that was not necessarily what was being asked for?
Yes, they said thanks.
Okay. So it's definitely limited. It's the same kind of search box you get with any kind of users. It's limited to the registered users of the Jazz instance that you're on. Okay. So let me go ahead and close that dialog. Okay. So I think in terms of the JRS, the only other thing that I want to make mention of is since most people are running against the data warehouse, and let me get back over here. So our data sources, most people are running against their data warehouse now. DCC is the component, or the data collection component is the guy that contributes to all of the data that you're reporting on in that warehouse, right? The thing that I wanted to quickly mention is that in 602, there's support that's been added for customized ETLs. So there's additional flexibility. But the reason I bring that up is I want to point out that DCC dependencies, when you're running your data collections, et cetera, those collections are refreshing your data warehouse, but unless you actually come into your data warehouse or your data source and you refresh the schema, then JRS has no way to know what structure you're reporting against. So, and that this does get auto-refreshed, but that's based upon a setting in your properties that you can't touch. It's on the server, so it would have to be somebody that touches your server property file. And if it's not being refreshed fast enough, you won't see those changes once your collections are run until you refresh the data source. The whole purpose of this button is to refresh the schema that's known about in the data warehouse so it knows what objects it can report against. Okay? So that's the reason I bring up that other enhancement, because we haven't had the capability for customized ETLs in DCC until 6.02. Okay. So it's 6 minutes till, so I want to pause and entertain any of the Q&A that might come from what we've talked about so far today, and any additional suggestions you guys might have for further follow-on webinars, not only to this or to whatever you want to see.
It doesn't look like it.
Okay.
Oh, will there be another release prior to the end of 2016?
Well, I couldn't possibly say, we're going to have a release and it's going to be on this date. I know we do quarterly releases, and I would expect, just from my job role, that we'll probably see another release, but I can't say that with any kind of guarantee without somebody, smacking me. Right, but I would imagine that we have another release coming down the pike in the fall time frame, or the fourth quarter, I should say, just simply because that's kind of the strategy, is targeting quarterly releases. Any other questions?
Okay, it doesn't look like it.
Okay. So I'll turn it back to you, Andrew, and I hope everybody has a wonderful Friday, and a quiet one at that.
Yes, definitely. So as we wrap up, if you enjoyed today's webinar and have any topics you'd like us to see touch on in the future, be sure to email us. Remember, you will be receiving an email this afternoon with a link to today's recorded webinar. On behalf of CloudOne, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today, and have a great weekend.
And thank you, Jeff. Thanks, everyone.
You're welcome.